Now, as a background, as it were, of the coming of the Great One, the parents began to get certain signs. The mother saw the famous crown of the Karmapas in her dreams, and the yellow robe of the monk floating near it. And his father, who was a great devotee, went one day to meet Tamarigzin Rinpoche, a local saint, who told him that great Maha Bodhisattva was to be born in his house. After the child had been conceived, many strange and miraculous signs occurred in the dreams of the Holy Mother-to-be, Kesang Chodam, and the father too. Not only this, which might have been considered understandable, but for miles around, even on the far banks of the river, the villagers began hearing the sacred horns blowing on the roof of the monastery. And there was no monastery there, and there were no horns. So they began to talk among themselves. I've been hearing great horns blowing, and I can't see any horns. And somebody would say, yes, I've also heard it. And it went on like this. In the village itself, then they began to hear lutes, the dilraba, stringed instruments, drums, bells, and the voices of monks in prayer, the chants of the lamas. They could not understand what was happening. They discussed these wonders among themselves. Ah, said the old ones, some great one must be coming to Denmark. As the time for her pregnancy to be completed came, there was a prediction that since the child was obviously a rare one, the birth should not take place in a house, but in the lap of this famous Lion Rock, mentioned earlier, where there was a beautiful flower-strewn meadow. The queen retired there with some servants and a very pure Anila, who had been requested to cut the umbilical cord. Now one can imagine the great excitement of the young mother and how they would put up the beautifully patchworked and coloured tents, which are always used for ceremonial occasions, in the flowery meadow. Finally, on the 13th day of the growing moon, the queen felt the first birth pangs. However, shortly after this, they stopped, what we would call false pains, and the mother's belly became flat, as if the child was no longer there. She felt so light, she just got up, and she walked round the mountain. This state of emptiness lasted 2 days, and it was only on the full moon day the belly of the mother became heavy again with its precious burden. As the sun rose, the child was born without his mother feeling any pain. And we are told that as he entered the world, he looked on her and smiled. Now, what was His Holiness like when he arrived? Well, we are told he had a cap of black silky hair like the Buddha. They swaddled him in cloth, and lying on his mother's arm, the 3rd day after his birth, he began saying the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, hail to the jewel in the lotus. That is the mantra of Chenrezig, the great Bodhisattva, who embodies the compassion of all the Buddhas. When the nurse, the nun, heard this, her face turned white, and she clenched her teeth to prevent herself from calling out loud. But the mother only smiled.